Hello everyone, it's Jonny Khatru, and in this video I'll be listening to the new EP from Speed Dealer Mums. It's called SDM-LA8-441-114-211. Speed Dealer Mums are an electronic music group made up of Chris McDonald, Aaron Funk, aka breakcore expert Venetian Snares, and rock experimentalist extraordinaire and Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist John Frusciante. Aaron Funk has a massive discography as Venetian Snares, full of dense and intense breakcore and drum and bass music. I love his 2005 album, which has a Hungarian title I won't try to pronounce, but you can see the album cover there and the title of the album. It's a bizarrely beautiful album that mixes modern classical string arrangements with crazy, intense electronic drum breaks. I have heard and enjoyed a few of his other albums, although none of them really blew me away like that one in particular. I did somewhat enjoy his 2018 collaboration with Daniel Lanois though. I think that was his last release. Now, like many music fans of a certain age, I was a huge fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers as a kid, and I still have a lot of love for a lot of their best work, and a lot of that is in large thanks to the guitar work of John Frusciante. And in fact, one of my most cherished albums as a teen was his 2004 solo album called Shadows Collide with People, which teeters on the edge of Pink Floyd-ish prog rock and more direct songwriting in the vein of someone like Neil Young. And I've followed Frusciante's explorations into experimental and electronic music as well. His 2010s work can be rather hit or miss with its rather awkward combinations of IDM and rock music, but I think his recent comeback album Maya was quite a bit more successful with its more straight-ahead revival of 90s drum and bass sounds. However, back in 2010, just before John Frusciante would enter his phase of strange blends, Speed Dealer Mums was formed, and I was quite excited by the idea of a collaboration between John Frusciante and Venetian Snares. They just released one EP though, consisting of just 2 tracks, but it was pretty cool. A couple of tracks of whacked out IDM. Since then, I've been looking forward to anything else from the group, and since I did enjoy Frusciante's most recent electronic work, I'm especially excited to see what they've come up with this time around. This new EP actually came out back in June to very little fanfare, so I'm a little bit late to it, but I still want to hear it, so let's get into it. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button for me, and let's get into this. Track 1 is called LA August 1. Okay, so that's the first track, and it sounds pretty great. I mean, just to say from the start, the production sounds fantastic, sounds clean as hell. But yeah, I will say the sound was, well, about as busy as you would expect from a group that has 3 people with their hands on the controls of an electronic composition, you know. But it has that sort of early Aphex Twin Squarepusher 90s kind of vibe. It's a feeling that I think is created by the mixture of kind of emotional melodic elements over more chaotic and cold beats and samples. I'm not familiar with Chris McDonald outside of this group, so it's hard for me to say exactly what his contribution is. There is some crossover with the sound of John Frusciante's recent album Maya in its callback to the sound of 90s IDM, but some of the sounds are very intense to the extreme that I assume they're being brought by Venetian Snares. Maybe there could have been a bit more development in the song over its 10-minute runtime. You know, by 8 minutes in, it was more or less in the same place as it was 2 or 3 minutes in. But it seems to me their intention was just to take this idea they had and then play with it over a runtime of 10 minutes. Pretty enjoyable anyway. I did get a lot out of it, and it was even fairly memorable thanks to the more melodic elements. So let's move on to track 2. It's called April 1-4. Alright, Right, so that was a bit more chaotic, or it started out more chaotic than the first track. Some really cool sound manipulation going on in the first couple of minutes of this song. But interestingly, there was also quite a lot of synth soloing going on in a sort of jazz fusion approach. Again, it reminds me a bit of Squarepusher, what he was doing back in the 90s. But the, I guess, melancholy nature of the notes being played definitely carried a bit of that Frusciante magic. It sounded lovely actually, but there did seem to be an intent to then fuck with the sounds as much as possible after a certain point, in a way that is fairly typical of Venetian Snares, I suppose. By the second half of the track, it did settle into kind of a groove actually. And while I did appreciate the development that the track went through, I probably did prefer the first half more just for how entertainingly chaotic it was. Pretty cool stuff. And that just leaves us with one last track, track 3. It's called April 2-11. Okay, so that one started out quite similarly to the second track actually. You know, with the what sounds like improvised lead synth playing, this time with multiple parts weaving in and out of each other, while the more percussive electronic elements go wild all over it. And I really loved that sound, but whereas the second track became more grounded as it went on, this track actually seemed to get more and more unhinged as it progressed, melting into a sort of Autechre-like display of spatial sound play, and then eventually attacking with some piercing noise and some extremely discordant melodies towards the end there. So in a way, that track kind of gave me what I wanted more in track 2, but at the same time had its own things going on. So I feel like each of the tracks on this EP did have something slightly different to offer, but always with maybe the same approach. You know, it sounds to me almost like maybe these songs were made one after the other at the same session perhaps, although obviously the first track has August in the title and the other two tracks have April. And of course I did feel there was more of a similarity with the two April tracks, so that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, on the whole, I did find this to be very enjoyable, at least on first listen. Always something memorable going on in each track. And perhaps I think even more so than their first EP, you could really feel the strengths of the individual members coming through in each of these songs, which I really liked. Like with John Frusciante's 𝐒𝐻𝐼𝐻, there is something somewhat retro about the feeling of this music, but also as with 𝐒𝐻𝐼𝐻, it's not really a problem for me because it sounds that I love and the compositions are entertaining, so can't really ask for much more. So if you've enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me with the link in the description to buy me a coffee. I'll really appreciate it. It does help me to keep this channel going, keep making these videos. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.